This is all she left you, Tyler. Nothing but junk. My Aunt Diane's voice rang out across the living room where 30 relatives had gathered after Grandma's funeral. She held up a dusty cardboard box like it was contaminated garbage, her red lipstick twisted into a smug smile. Everyone turned to stare at me. I felt my face burn hot with shame as whispers rippled through the crowd. Uncle Frank snickered from the couch. Cousin Bethany covered her mouth to hide her laughter. Diane shook the box dramatically, and something heavy shifted inside. Old recipes and broken jewelry, probably classic Vera, giving a family disappointment exactly what he deserves. I stood there frozen in Grandma's Victorian house in Charleston, South Carolina, my throat tight with humiliation. But something caught my eye. Diane's hand trembled slightly as she held the box. Her confident smile flickered when I stepped forward to take it. For just a second, I saw a panic flash across her face. Why is it sealed with packing tape? I asked quietly. It wasn't sealed before. Diane's eyes widened. Don't be ridiculous. Just take your trash and go. She practically threw the box at me and rushed toward the door, her heels clicking frantically on the hardwood floor. The room fell silent. Everyone watched her leave without saying goodbye. My name is Tyler Brooks, and I'm 28 years old. I grew up right here in Charleston, and my grandmother, Vera, was the only person who ever truly believed in me. If you want to hear more stories like this one, please subscribe to this channel. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my family. That night, I sat alone in my garage apartment with a box on my kitchen table. The overhead light buzzed softly as I stared at the thick layers of packing tape wrapped around every edge. This wasn't casual packaging. Someone had sealed this box like they were hiding evidence. My hands shook as I grabbed scissors and carefully cut through the tape. The cardboard flaps opened with a dusty sigh. Inside, just like Diane had said, there was old junk on top, worn recipe cards, a broken string of fake pearls, faded photographs. But underneath, wrapped in a plastic bag, I found something else entirely. 3 sealed manila envelopes. Each one had my name written in Grandma Vera's shaky handwriting. My heart pounded as I lifted the first envelope. It was heavy, filled with papers. I carefully tore it open and pulled out a stack of documents. Bank statements, property deeds, legal papers covered in official stamps and signatures. And right on top, a handwritten letter that started with the words, "Tyler, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and someone has been stealing from me for years." I read Grandma's letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. Her handwriting got shakier toward the end, but every word was clear. She wrote that she'd started noticing money disappearing from her accounts about 5 years ago. Small amounts at first, then larger withdrawals. When she asked her bank, they told her the transactions were authorized by her power of attorney. That power of attorney was Diane. I pretended not to notice, Grandma wrote. I wanted to see how far she would go. I documented everything. I saved every statement, every suspicious transaction. I knew I couldn't trust the rest of the family to believe me over her. They never liked that I was closest to you, Tyler. But you're the only one I can trust with the truth. My vision blurred with tears. While Grandma was dying of cancer last year, I'd been scraping together money to help pay for her medications. I'd taken extra shifts at the warehouse, sold my truck, borrowed from friends, and the whole time, Diane had been draining Grandma's accounts. The letter ended with, "Everything is documented in these envelopes. The accounts she doesn't know about are protected. Make her pay for what she's done. I love you, my sweet boy." The next morning, I took the papers to Frank Dawson, a retired banker who'd been friends with my grandfather. He lived in a small brick house near the river, and I'd mowed his lawn all through high school. Frank invited me in, made coffee, and spread the documents across his dining room table. He studied them for nearly an hour, occasionally muttering under his breath. Finally, he looked up at me with grave eyes. "Tyler, this is bad. Really bad." He pointed to highlighted sections on the bank statements. "These withdrawals here, and here. They're unauthorized. Your grandmother's signature was forged on the authorization forms." My stomach dropped. How much are we talking about? Frank did quick math on a notepad. Based on what I see here, roughly $215,000 over 5 years. I nearly choked on my coffee. $215,000. While I'd been eating ramen noodles and sleeping on a futon, Diane had stolen enough money to buy a house. "There's more," Frank said quietly. He slid another document toward me. "This property deed. It shows something your aunt definitely doesn't want you to know about." The property deed showed that Grandma owned a small rental house on James Island. According to the documents, she'd been collecting $800 a month in rent for the past 6 years. But none of that money had gone into her accounts. Frank traced the paper trail. The rental payments had been deposited directly into an account that Diane had opened in Grandma's name without her knowledge. Nearly $60,000 in rental income vanished. Your grandmother was sharper than people gave her credit for, Frank said with sad admiration. She figured it out and started keeping duplicate records. "Look at these." He showed me copies of statements that Grandma had requested directly from the bank. She'd highlighted every suspicious transaction in yellow marker and written notes in the margins. "Check with my lawyer about this one. Tyler needs to know. Diane thinks I'm too sick to notice." I thought about all those afternoons I'd spent with Grandma during her final months. She'd hold my hand and tell me stories about her childhood. She never mentioned any of this. She'd been protecting me, gathering evidence, planning for this exact moment. The biggest shock came when I checked the county property records online that afternoon. I sat in the public library, my hands trembling as I typed Grandma's address into the database. The current deed showed something that made my heart stop. The house where we'd held the funeral gathering, the house where Grandma had lived for 40 years, wasn't solely in her name anymore. 3 years ago, she'd filed paperwork adding me as a co-owner. I read the document 5 times to make sure. The deed explicitly stated that upon Vera Brooks's death, full ownership would transfer to Tyler James Brooks. That was me. I owned Grandma's house, but Diane had been acting like she owned it. I remembered her showing a real estate agent around the property 2 days after the funeral. She'd talk about listing it for $400,000 and splitting the money among Grandma's children. Except the house wasn't hers to sell. I printed the deed and drove straight to the house. A for sale sign was already planted in the front yard. Diane was standing on the porch with the same real estate agent, pointing out features of the property. When she saw me, her face went pale. I didn't confront her. I just stood there on the sidewalk, holding the printed deed against my chest where she couldn't see it, and smiled. "Hey, Aunt Diane. Just wanted to grab a few more Grandma's things, if that's okay." She recovered quickly, her fake smile snapping back into place. "Of course, sweetie. Take your time. We're just discussing listing prices." I nodded and walked past them into the house. My heart hammered as I climbed the stairs to Grandma's bedroom. I didn't actually need anything. I just needed Diane to think everything was normal. Over the next week, I kept quiet. I didn't tell anyone what I'd found. I went to work, came home, acted like nothing had changed. But Diane grew suspicious. She started calling me more often, first to check in, then to ask odd questions. "Did you throw out that box I gave you? Did you find anything interesting in Grandma's old papers?" You know she was pretty confused toward the end, right? Each call made it more obvious. She was terrified I'd found something. On Friday afternoon, she invited me to lunch at a seafood place downtown. "We need to talk about family business," she said sweetly over the phone. I agreed to meet her. We sat across from each other in a booth near the window. Diane ordered oysters and acted concerned about my life. "How are you holding up, Tyler? I know you and Grandma were close." I pushed crab cakes around my plate. "I'm managing, still processing everything." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. "Listen, I want to talk to you about something important. There's a lot of legal paperwork to handle with Grandma's estate. Taxes, debts, property transfers. It's incredibly complicated." I nodded, playing dumb. "I don't really understand that stuff." "Exactly. That's why I've arranged for my lawyer to help simplify things. He's drawn up some documents that basically let me handle everything so you don't have to worry about it. All you need to do is sign a few forms giving me power of attorney over the estate matters. There it was. She wanted me to sign away my rights to the house and any other assets. That sounds really helpful, I said slowly. I trust you to handle it. Her whole body relaxed. Perfect. I'll bring the papers by your place this weekend. Just a few signatures, and everything will be taken care of. She paid for lunch and hugged me goodbye. I felt sick. That same afternoon, I met with Patricia Hendricks, the attorney I'd contacted using a recommendation from Frank. Her office was in a renovated building near the historic district. She was a sharp woman in her 60s who'd handled estate disputes for 30 years. I showed her everything. Grandma's letters, the bank statements, the property deeds, and the story about Diane's lunch invitation. Patricia studied the documents carefully, making notes on a yellow legal pad. Finally, she looked up at me with fierce determination. Tyler, your aunt is attempting to commit fraud. If you sign those papers she's bringing, you'll be signing away your legal ownership of the house and possibly your rights to pursue claims against her for the stolen money. My throat felt tight. What should I do? Patricia smiled grimly. We're going to let her think it worked. She explained the strategy. I would meet with Diane, act confused and overwhelmed, and pretend to sign the documents. But the signatures would be on copies, not the originals. Meanwhile, Patricia would file a cease and desist order preventing any sale of the property. We'll also request a full audit of your grandmother's accounts. And Tyler, I need to warn you, this is going to get ugly. Family always does. I nodded. She deserves it. That Saturday, Diane arrived at my apartment with a leather folder full of papers. She wore expensive pantsuit and fake sympathy. I know this is overwhelming, but I promise I'm going to take care of everything. I sat at my kitchen table, looking helpless and grateful. I really appreciate this, Aunt Diane. I don't know what I'd do without your help. She set the papers in front of me and pointed to highlighted signature lines. Just sign here, here, and here. Initial this page. Sign and date this one. I picked up a pen, my hand shaking slightly, not from fear, but from rage. As I bent over the papers, Diane couldn't help herself. She started talking, her voice full of satisfaction. Honestly, Tyler, Grandma should have set things up better. All that property, all those accounts, and she left such a mess. Thank God I was paying attention to her finances these last few years. Someone had to make sure the bills got paid. I kept my head down, signing the fake copies Patricia had prepared. You really looked out for her. I did, more than anyone knows. I made sure her money was safe, moved things around before anyone could notice problems. The paperwork was such a disaster. My pen froze for half a second. She'd just admitted moving Grandma's money. The recording device in my shirt pocket was capturing every word. After Diane left, I drove straight to Patricia's office and handed her the recorded conversation. We sat in her conference room and listened to it twice. She actually said she moved money around before anyone noticed. Patricia said with satisfaction, "That's consciousness of guilt. Combined with the forged documents, this changes everything. We can pursue criminal charges if we want." My hands trembled. Will that hold up in court? Patricia nodded firmly. Absolutely. South Carolina allows one-party consent for recordings. This is completely legal evidence. Over the next few days, I waited for Diane to realize something was wrong. The cease and desist order had been filed, and the real estate agent had been notified that the property sale was blocked. Sure enough, 3 days later, my phone exploded with messages. Diane, angry, confused, demanding to know what was happening. I didn't answer. Then my other relatives started calling. Uncle Frank's son, Cousin Bethany, even my own mother, who I hadn't spoken to in years. They all said the same thing. Diane claimed I was trying to steal Grandma's estate. She'd told everyone I was unstable, greedy, manipulating legal documents, making up lies about her. By the end of the week, half the family had blocked my number. I sat alone in my apartment, watching my phone light up with messages calling me selfish and accusing me of betraying the family. The isolation hurt worse than I expected. These people had watched Diane humiliate me at the funeral And now, they believe her lies without even asking my side. I was ready to give up when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Tyler, this is Nathan. Diane's son. We need to talk. I have emails you need to see. I stared at the message in shock. Nathan was Diane's youngest son, 24 years old, someone I barely knew. Why would he contact me? We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near the College of Charleston campus. Nathan showed up looking nervous, carrying a laptop bag. We sat in a corner booth, and he opened his computer. I need you to know I had no idea what my mom was doing, he said quietly. I found these emails by accident last month when I borrowed her laptop. He turned the screen toward me. I saw an email thread between Diane and her husband, spanning back 5 years. The subject line read, Vera's accounts. My stomach turned as I read. The emails proved everything. Diane had discussed her plans to manage Grandma's money without oversight. She'd written about forging signatures and moving funds strategically. Nathan scrolled through message after message. The emails showed cold calculation. Diane had written to her husband, Vera won't notice if we're careful. She's getting too sick to keep track. By the time anyone questions anything, it'll be too late. In another message, she described me specifically. Tyler is too dumb to check any paperwork. As long as we keep him feeling guilty and poor, he won't ask questions. I felt my hands curl into fists. Nathan looked genuinely pained. I confronted her about it last night. She told me I was overreacting, that families help each other with finances all the time. But Tyler, this isn't helping. This is theft. He agreed to forward the emails to Patricia. Before we parted, I asked him why he was doing this. Nathan's jaw tightened. Because Grandma Vera was good to me. She helped pay for my college when my parents said they couldn't afford it. And I watched my mom throw you under the bus at the funeral. That was cruel. Someone needs to stand up for what's right. I thanked him and drove straight to Patricia's office. When she read the emails, her expression turned fierce. These show premeditation. This isn't just financial mismanagement. This is planned, deliberate theft. The emails led us to another discovery. Patricia requested official copies of Grandma's will from the probate court. When they arrived, something seemed wrong. The will stated that all assets should be divided equally among Grandma's 3 children, with no specific mention of me or the house. But I remembered Grandma telling me years ago that she'd updated her will to name me specifically. This has been altered. Patricia said after examining the document closely, See this page? The paper quality is different. Someone replaced page 3. She filed a motion questioning the will's authenticity. The probate judge agreed to investigate. Meanwhile, I kept thinking about Grandma's letter. She'd written everything is documented. There had to be more evidence somewhere. I went back to the box and examined every item carefully. That's when I found it, tucked inside an old cookbook, a small receipt from a storage facility dated 2 months before Grandma died. Unit 247. The monthly fee had been paid automatically from an account I'd never seen mentioned before. The next morning, I drove to the storage facility on the edge of town. The manager verified my name on the rental agreement and handed me a key. My heart pounded as I walked down the concrete hallway to Unit 247. The storage unit was small, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet, and surprisingly organized. Metal shelves held labeled boxes. File folders were arranged by year. And right in the center, sitting on top of everything else, was a cardboard box marked for Tyler. Watch immediately. Inside that box, I found a laptop and a note from Grandma. I recorded everything. The password is your birthday. Don't let them erase who I really was. My hand shook as I opened the laptop and typed in the password. The screen lit up, showing a folder labeled Final Testimony. Inside were 3 video files. I clicked the first one. Grandma's face filled the screen. She looked thin and tired, sitting in her bedroom with afternoon light coming through the window. The timestamp showed it was recorded 6 weeks before she died. Hi, my sweet boy, she said, her voice weak but clear. If you're watching this, then my plan worked. You found the evidence, and you're going to make things right. She explained everything. How she discovered the theft, how she'd secretly consulted with lawyers, how she created multiple copies of documents and hidden them in different locations. She named Diane specifically, called her a thief and a liar, and apologized for not protecting me better from the family's cruelty. The second video was even more powerful. Grandma had recorded herself going through each bank statement, explaining every fraudulent transaction, showing forged signatures, documenting the timeline of theft. She'd essentially created a complete legal testimony, anticipating exactly what would be needed in court. I had a forensic document examiner verify the forgeries, she said on camera, holding up a certified report. I have sworn statements from my actual lawyer, confirming that I never authorized Diane to have power of attorney over my financial accounts. Everything you need to prove the truth is in this storage unit. The third video broke my heart. Grandma sat in her chair, wrapped in her favorite blue blanket, and spoke directly to me. Tyler, you've always been the kindest person in this family. You worked so hard to help me when I was sick, even though you barely had anything yourself. You deserve so much more than what they've given you. This house, this property, this evidence, it's all yours now. Don't let them bully you. Don't let them make you feel small. You're worth more than all of them combined. Tears streamed down my face as I watched. At the end, Grandma smiled. I love you, sweet boy. Now go make them pay. Patricia confirmed that the videos were legally admissible as evidence. 2 weeks later, Patricia filed a comprehensive civil lawsuit against Diane in Charleston County Court. The complaint detailed everything: the forged signatures, the stolen funds, the altered will, the unauthorized rental income, the attempted fraud. We attached Grandma's video testimony, the bank records, the emails Nathan had provided, and the forensic document analysis. The suit demanded full restitution of stolen funds, transfer of all wrongfully obtained property, and punitive damages for fraud. On a Tuesday morning, a process server found Diane at her country club having brunch with friends. He handed her the lawsuit papers in front of everyone. According to Nathan, who heard the story from someone who witnessed it, Diane's face went completely white. She grabbed the papers, saw the words grand theft and elder abuse in the complaint, and started hyperventilating. She rushed out of the club, leaving her friends confused and whispering. Within an hour, my phone started ringing. Diane's number appeared 12 times. I didn't answer. Then she started texting. Tyler, we need to talk. This is insane. You're destroying the family. I never meant to hurt you. There's been a misunderstanding. Please call me. We can work this out privately. I showed the messages to Patricia. She smiled coldly. She's panicking. 3 days after being served, Diane's lawyer contacted Patricia requesting an urgent meeting. We met in a conference room downtown. Diane sat across from us looking smaller somehow, her expensive clothes unable to hide her desperation. Her lawyer, a nervous man named Wallace, slid a settlement offer across the table. We're prepared to pay Tyler $50,000 to resolve this matter quietly. No admission of wrongdoing, just a family settlement. I looked at the number and laughed. 50,000? She stole over $275,000, counting the rental income. Wallace shifted uncomfortably. My client disputes those figures. However, in the interest of avoiding prolonged litigation, we're offering this good faith amount. Patricia leaned forward. Your client committed elder abuse, forgery, and grand theft. She altered legal documents and attempted to defraud my client out of inherited property. We're not interested in settling for a fraction of what was stolen. Diane finally spoke, her voice shaking. Tyler, please. I made mistakes, but I'm still family. Think about what this will do to your mother, to your cousins. Do you really want to tear apart everything over money? I met her eyes. You called me worthless in front of everyone. You tried to cheat me out of what Grandma wanted me to have. You stole from her while she was dying. My voice stayed calm. This isn't about money. This is about justice. Diane's face twisted with rage. The mask of fake concern completely dropped. You ungrateful little nobody. After everything I did for this family, you're really going to destroy me over some paperwork. She stood up, slamming her hands on the conference table. I paid for things that needed paying. I managed her money better than she ever could. That house should have been mine anyway. I'm her daughter, not you. Wallace tried to calm her down, but she shoved him away. You want to play this game, Tyler? Fine. I'll tell everyone what you really are. A loser who dropped out of college, who couldn't hold a real job, who only sucked up to Grandma because you wanted her money. I stayed seated, completely calm. Are you finished? That seemed to snap something in her. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. Before leaving, she turned back. You're going to regret this. I'll make sure you never see a penny. I'll tie this up in court for years. I'll ruin you. The door slammed behind her. Patricia looked at me with raised eyebrows. Well, that went well. We refused a settlement. The case moved forward to discovery. Over the next 2 months, Patricia subpoenaed Diane's bank records, email accounts, and financial documents. What we discovered was even worse than we'd thought. Diane hadn't just stolen from Grandma. She'd also taken money from an elderly neighbor she'd been helping, embezzled from a charity she'd volunteered with, and falsified documents for 2 other relatives. The pattern was clear. She'd been systematically exploiting vulnerable people for years. The bank cooperated fully, providing records showing the exact trail of stolen money. Every transaction was documented. Every forged signature was analyzed and proven fake. Diane's lies collapsed under the weight of evidence. Then something unexpected happened. The district attorney's office contacted Patricia. They'd been reviewing the civil case and wanted to pursue criminal charges. Elder abuse and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult were serious crimes in South Carolina. Diane could face prison time. I sat in Patricia's office trying to process this. If they press criminal charges, what happens? Patricia explained it carefully. The civil case continues separately, but if she's convicted criminally, it strengthens our position significantly. And Tyler, she'd likely serve time. I thought about Grandma's video. Make them pay, she'd said. I gave the district attorney permission to use the evidence. The public hearing for the civil case was scheduled for a Friday morning in October. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, with paneling and fluorescent lights that hummed quietly. I sat next to Patricia at the plaintiff's table, watching people file in. Nathan came to support me, sitting in the gallery. A few other relatives showed up, whispering and shooting me dark looks. Diane arrived with Wallace, wearing a navy suit and pearl earrings, trying to look respectable and wounded. The judge, a stern woman named Henderson, called the court to order. Patricia presented our case methodically. She walked through the bank statements, explaining each fraudulent transaction. She showed the forged signatures side by side with Grandma's real signature. She presented the emails Nathan had provided. She detailed the altered will and the attempted fraud. Wallace tried to argue that Diane had been helping her mother, that Grandma had been confused, and had actually authorized the transactions. He claimed the missing money was spent on Grandma's care. Patricia destroyed those arguments with medical records, showing exactly what care Grandma had received and what it had cost. The math didn't add up. Diane had stolen the money for herself. I watched Diane's face as the testimony proceeded. She sat rigid, her jaw clenched, her eyes fixed on the table in front of her. Then Patricia played Grandma's video. The courtroom went completely silent. On a large screen at the front, Grandma appeared, looking directly into the camera. Her voice filled the room. My name is Vera Louise Brooks. I'm recording this testimony because I know that after I die, my daughter Diane will try to steal from my grandson Tyler. She went through everything methodically, named Diane by name, explained the theft, showed documents, pointed to specific transactions, spoke clearly about her intentions. I want everything to go to Tyler. The house, the property, the remaining money. He's the only one who deserves it. He's the only one who loved me without wanting something in return. When she said, "Don't let them make you feel small. You're worth more than all of them combined," I heard people in the gallery shifting uncomfortably. The video ended with Grandma saying, "This testimony is given freely and with full mental competence. I've had a psychiatric evaluation to confirm I'm of sound mind. Let the record show that Diane is a thief." The screen went black. Judge Henderson stared at it for a long moment. Then she looked at Diane. "Do you have any response to this testimony?" Diane's face had gone white. Her hands trembled. Tears started running down her cheeks, smearing her makeup. "I just wanted to help," she whispered. Nobody believed her. Judge Henderson took a brief recess to review all the evidence. When she returned, her expression was severe. "I've reviewed the testimony, the documents, and the video evidence. This is one of the clearest cases of elder financial abuse I've seen in my career." She looked directly at Diane. "Ms. Diane Cooper, you systematically stole from your dying mother. You forged documents. You lied to family members, and you attempted to defraud your nephew out of his rightful inheritance." The ruling was comprehensive. All stolen funds to be repaid to Grandma's estate with interest. The house and property transferred fully to my name. Punitive damages of $75,000 for fraud and emotional distress. Diane's power of attorney over any family member immediately revoked. All altered documents declared invalid and replaced with the original will from the storage unit. Plus, the judge ordered Diane to pay all legal fees. The total judgment was over $350,000. Diane sat frozen as the judge read the verdict. Wallace looked defeated. In the gallery, I saw a few relatives whispering to each other, their expressions shifting from judgment to shock. Judge Henderson wasn't finished. "I'm also referring this case to the State Bar Association regarding your attorney's failure to verify the authenticity of documents. And I'll be notifying the district attorney's office that criminal prosecution should be pursued." Court adjourned. The fallout happened quickly. Within a week, Diane's professional licenses were suspended pending investigation. She'd worked as a financial advisor for a small firm. When they learned about the judgment, they terminated her immediately. Her social circle evaporated. The country club friends who'd witnessed her being served the lawsuit papers stopped returning her calls. People who'd respected her suddenly remembered warning signs they'd ignored. The charities she'd volunteered would discover their own missing funds and filed a separate lawsuit. Diane's husband filed for separation, apparently unwilling to be associated with her legal troubles. Most of the family members who defended her quietly reached out to apologize. Uncle Frank's son sent a text. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you." Cousin Bethany called crying, admitting she'd been scared to go against Diane. Even my mother called, though her apology felt hollow and motivated by guilt. Nathan stayed in touch. He decided to distance himself from his mother completely, refusing to enable her behavior any longer. "Some people don't deserve family loyalty," he told me. The criminal charges moved forward. Diane's lawyer managed to negotiate a plea deal to avoid trial. She pleaded guilty to exploitation of an elderly person and was sentenced to 18 months in prison, followed by 5 years probation. The judge made it clear she was lucky to avoid a longer sentence. 3 months after the court ruling, I stood on the porch of Grandma's house. My house now. I'd spent the past weeks cleaning it out, honoring Grandma's memory by restoring everything she'd loved. The garden she'd tended, the paint colors she'd chosen, the family photos she'd arranged. I'd also set up a trust fund using part of the recovered money. The Vera Brooks Memorial Scholarship would help local kids attend college, especially those from families who couldn't afford it. The first 3 recipients had just been announced. One afternoon, Diane called my number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello." Her voice was small, broken. "Tyler, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I want to say I'm sorry. I was wrong." I stepped inside the house, looking at Grandma's portrait on the wall. "You destroyed your own life, Diane. Not me." "I know. I just thought maybe we could talk. Maybe after I get out, we could rebuild some kind of relationship." I thought about Grandma's words. "Don't let them make you feel small." I thought about everything Diane had done, all the cruelty and lies and theft. "No," I said simply. "I don't think we can. You showed me exactly who you are. I believe you. Please, Tyler, I'm still family." Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't humiliate each other. You made your choices. Now live with them. I hung up, standing in that beautiful house, Surrounded by Grandma's love and legacy, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I'd honored her wishes. I'd fought for the truth. I'd refused to be made small. The man they called worthless had become the guardian of his grandmother's true legacy, and that was worth more than all the money in the world.